Hello, my name is William. I am part of the product marketing team at GitLab. And today in this video, I would love to test out some new messaging that we're building for our customer deck. This is a slide deck that people would use to tell new folks about GitLab who are unfamiliar with GitLab, or that our sales team would use on calls or when they go to meetings. We call this the customer deck. So we're playing around with the slides, trying to come up with some new messaging. I'm going to pitch it to you today, and then I would love to get your feedback. So with that, I'll share my screen. And this is the deck that we're working on. Now, what I'll do is in the description of this video, I'll post a link to the issue where we're discussing this messaging and would love to get your feedback on it as well. So I'll present this to you as though we were on a video call and I was just talking through the deck. So at GitLab, our mission is everyone can contribute. And when we're talking to businesses and enterprises, we hear a lot about digital transformation disrupting every industry. Financial services, how often do you go into a bank anymore these days? You do it all on your phone, on an app. Taxis, I can't remember the last time I caught a taxi. I always use rideshare. Hotels, folks use Airbnb, and every industry across the board is being disrupted by digital transformation. And not only is the world changing and every industry, every company is becoming a software company and every industry is being disrupted by digital transformation, but even the way that companies are doing digital transformation is changing in the world today. I'll show you what I'm talking about with a personal anecdote. If you think back to the days before smartphones, everybody had a personal tool chain. You had a phone, calendar, email, text, etc. And all of these different tools were not designed to work with each other. You had to assemble and kind of cobble together a personal tool chain from a set of disparate tools. And then when you wanted to accomplish something, you had to create a workflow from these various tools. For example, if I took a photo of my family and I wanted to share it, I needed to take the SD card out of the camera, I needed to put it into my computer, I needed to then send it over via email. But then smartphones came along. And this totally changed the way we work. Not only did it streamline workflows that we had before, for example, now I can take a photo and just hit a button to send it, but it also created new emergent workflows that we hadn't thought about before. So e-commerce and ride sharing and social media networking have now emerged because of this consolidation of tools into a single device, in a single application. Well, when we talk to businesses who are driving digital transformation, this is kind of a similar story. The engine that they are using is a set of disparate tools that are cobbled together in order to get them to deliver software. So when they try to ideate and come up with software ideas and plan out how they should build them, send them to an engineering team so they can write software, review it, and test it, and then deploy that software into running production and monitor it, there's a whole bunch of tools that were never designed to work with each other, but that get cobbled together in order to create this software delivery tool chain. Well, at GitLab, the way we're thinking about this is about building a single application, a DevOps platform as a single application, so that not only your existing workflows can be streamlined, but that new emergent workflows, you can take advantage of new emergent workflows that didn't exist before and new ways of working. So if that sounds interesting or appealing, I'd love to just tell you a little bit about, for the next 15 minutes, what we're seeing in the industry and how GitLab is building a response to that. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about that. So when we look at the drivers for digital transformation, when we're talking to businesses, we tend to see three themes emerging. First, they want to increase operational efficiencies. So this is something like simplifying that tool chain so that they have a lower total cost of ownership across all the things that they manage. They want to deliver better products faster. So they want to accelerate software delivery to be able to meet whatever their business objectives are. So if you're delivering software to customers, the faster you can get out new features, the faster you can drive revenue. Or if your software is enabling critical internal business processes to your employees, the better you can deliver that software faster, the faster you can deliver that better software, your employees can then be more productive. So whatever your business outcomes, we want to deliver better products faster. But at the same time, we want to reduce security and compliance risk. So Mark Zuckerberg famously said, go fast and break things. And the modern view of product development, the modern world of product development has largely rejected that hypothesis because you can't just go fast and break things. There's a lot of people and a lot of things that rely on our software, and it needs to be stable. So we need to have security checks. We need to have compliance checks. We need to make sure that as we're shipping new things, they don't break old things. We need to go fast and not break things. And at the same time, with all of those security checks and all those compliance checks, we can't let that hinder our speed. So we want to both have agility and resiliency. We want to go fast and keep things up and running, secure and compliant at the same time. And so delivering better products faster while also reducing security and compliance risk. These are the reasons that enterprises and businesses are shifting from an analog view of the world to adopting software, becoming software companies, and going through digital transformation. So what are the challenges, though, when they start to go through a digital transformation? Well, they will experience complexity, bottlenecks, and inefficiencies. Of course, if you have a lot of different tools or manual processes, each of those different tools can end up being a silo, and each of those processes can end up being a silo. And so DevOps, which is intended to break down silos, can actually end up creating more silos because each of your teams is running in these separate tools and instead of collaborating with each other. So they end up waiting on each other. So you have bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Poor collaboration between teams because they don't have the same view of the world. There can be periodic crisis, unsatisfying trade-offs. So you can show up in the news because you had a security breach. Again, it's very important to maintain security and compliance as we're going quickly. And a challenge is loss of visibility and traceability. How do I do auditing as things become more and more complex? How do I keep track of what my system's doing? How do I audit it to ensure that it's compliant? It becomes difficult as things become more complex. And as a result of these challenges, it becomes very hard to innovate at the speed that the business demands. And so we see these negative consequences of this state that we're in, which is we have poor quality products that are over budget and at unexpected costs. So projects run long, they take more money, they take more time than we anticipated. That gives us poor velocity, which leads to lost market opportunities. So as we're trying to capture more market ground and outpace competitors, this becomes difficult if we don't have a steady, fast pace of delivery. And so if we're stuck and can't go through digital transformation, then it's a lost market opportunity. Additionally, if we're stuck on legacy technologies and we're trying to become a software company, it's not enough to just go for digital transformation. We need to modernize as we go. Digital transformation is a continual process. And what happens is if once upon a time we became a software company, but we're on legacy technologies, often developers and engineers will go to the places that they get to work on exciting things. And so companies that are working on older technologies often see developer turnover. They have a very difficult time recruiting software engineers, which is one of the greatest challenges. So this is something that we experience. We have high turnover, poor developer experience, and of course, whenever there's downtime or whenever there's a security breach, this can be business disruption, damaged reputation, and lost customers. So these are the negative things we experience. But what if we could wave a magic wand and everything was working the way we wanted it to work? What would things look like as we're trying to deliver software? Well, we probably would want a simplified, streamlined, and efficient tools and processes. Something that scales with the business complexity and gives us security and quality at speed without compromises. We would want teams to be highly productive and be able to collaborate seamlessly. We want to break down those silos and give cross-team collaboration. We would want complete control and visibility across the entire process. So rather than things being data and information being locked away in different places, we would want to have visibility into what's happening and be able to monitor it and respond to it. And we would want to have consistent and confident responsive business engine. This is where I can deliver software with confidence. There is low deployment risk as I ship new features. I know they've been security tested. I know that they've gone through all of the rigor that they need to run, and a new piece of software in production is not going to take the whole system down. So I'm going to be up and stable, reliable, secure, and compliant. Now, to get that, if we had that type of a system, what would that do for our business? What would the business outcomes look like for your business? Well, you'd have projects delivered on time and on budget. You'd have increased team productivity and velocity. Of course, as you go drive into new markets, you would increase your market share and revenue. And of course, increase customer satisfaction, not just customer satisfaction, but employee satisfaction as well. These are some positive business outcomes you could expect to achieve with an ideal system. And of course, if we wanted to get there, what would we need? What would the required capabilities of our tooling need to be in order for us to experience these? Now, when we talk to enterprise businesses, we hear a lot of different required capabilities. We hear these types of business outcomes they want to achieve. These are just a few examples of what might be some required capabilities in order to achieve these outcomes. For example, businesses may need tooling that has a solution that scales to match the performance and the cost of the organization. For example, in order to support multi-cloud, we know that today 80% of enterprises are running in more than one public cloud. So as enterprises are deploying software on premises, moving to the cloud, using multiple clouds, they need the flexibility to be able to deploy anywhere. They want a tool that's going to be cloud agnostic and partner with all of the cloud vendors so that they're not locked into the way that one particular public cloud is doing it. And they want the ability to have flexibility to run the software where they want it. So can they manage it themselves on premises? Can you manage it in a public cloud? Or can you just subscribe to a SaaS service? And are the SaaS offerings and the self-managed offerings, are they going to be the same, or are those going to be different? So types of flexible deployment models, those would all be required capabilities. Another required capability might be one consistent view of a collaboration space for development teams, operators, and security teams. So this would be something like having a consistent conversation or consistent conversation thread across different stages of the software development lifecycle. That might be a required capability. The ability for developers to get immediate feedback on their code changes. So again, if we want application security, we don't want to tack it on at the end. We want to shift left our security to know as soon as possible when there's a possible problem with the security code. Many of our customers that we talk to have lengthy security review cycles. Development ships a feature, they send it to the security team, which takes some time to review it. By the time they ship it back for the developer to fix, they've already moved on to another project, they've forgotten the state, it's very inefficient. But what if while this developer was working on it, they could see what security vulnerabilities they just introduced into the code and go and fix those right away before they made it onto the next step? That might be a required capability built in rather than bolted on security. And of course, centralized reporting and visibility across the software development lifecycle. Often when I'm talking to customers and users of GitLab, I hear that for their auditing and compliance is very painful. When you have a disparate tool chain with a lot of different tools and you're trying to audit that process, it can be very difficult. You are pulling data out of a lot of different places, and then you need to stitch it together in order to create a story to understand what's happened. But a required capability might be having a simplified tool chain, having all of my data in one place so that I have one place to go and one audit log to review what's happened. So if we had those required capabilities, how would we measure success? If you were to adopt a tool that had those capabilities, how would you measure that success? Well, looking at increasing your operational efficiencies, you would want to see your total cost of ownership go down. The amount that you are paying to manage your tool chain should decrease. Of course, your cycle time should increase. The time it takes from when you start to when you finish a feature, for example, from when the developer starts working on it to when that's in production, that time should be reduced if you have efficient tooling. You should be able to deploy more frequently. We hear often from research firms such as Dora, the DevOps research firm. They have metrics that they correlate to successful businesses, and deployment frequency is one of them. The businesses that are the most successful, they have the most market share and the most revenue, are the ones that can deploy the most frequently as they adopt DevOps. And you would see less developer turnover because they've been working on tools that they love, and you see customer satisfaction go up, or employee satisfaction go up. As you want to deliver better products faster, you could measure that, of course, in revenue, in your number of customers, in your market share. You could also measure that as the percentage of on-time, on-budget releases. You could measure that in terms of your cycle time, also the time spent per stage waiting, and the throughput of each developer are potential metrics. And of course, mean time to resolution. When something goes wrong, how long does it take you to be able to fix that and get things back to normal? That's the mean time to resolution. When you're talking about reducing security and compliance risk, look at percentage of code scanned, percentage of critical vulnerabilities that escaped and actually made their way out. What is your audit pass rate, and how much time do you spend on audits? And again, looking at the MTTR for those security vulnerabilities, these are metrics that we would want to baseline and then look at to say, this is what we want to go improve and how we're going to measure success. Well, let me tell you a little bit about GitLab, about how we do it a bit better than everybody else, or quite a bit better than everyone else, and what other folks are saying about us. So, as I mentioned, GitLab is a complete DevOps platform delivered as a single application. So from managing all the way to monitoring and defending across the software development lifecycle, across the DevOps lifecycle, there's a single application providing all of these capabilities. What this does is gives you a single conversation across the cycle. One place to go look at data, one place to go look at auditing. It's secure because there's a single permission model. You're not trying to manage permissions in different places. There's a single interface for governance security. You have teams that can collaborate together, and you can get some good metrics about what is happening with your software. So what this looks like in practice is we have these DevOps best practices built into GitLab. This is an example flow of how a feature might be built in an ongoing product lifecycle. It might start with an issue that's created that defines a new feature that needs to be built. The developer would pick up that issue, and they'd create a merge request, which would branch a bit of code for them to go work on in their branch. They would commit changes to that branch, which would then kick off a CI pipeline, continuous integration pipeline, that's going to run automated testing on that code. But not just unit tests and integration tests, but also application security built in, so that at the time of that code change, the developer is getting that security review so they can fix that immediately while it's in development and not later on. Of course, right as part of that branch and what we call a merge request, there's a review application. So they have a staging environment for every single branch. That way, their changes don't conflict with other changes in the way a traditional staging environment works. You can now have peer review discussion with both engineers and non-engineers who can go and introspect the code, who can go and look at how the application behaves, review it, collaborate. And then there's an approval process so that you can make sure that only the right changes get out. When that code is then merged back into the main branch, the infrastructure is configured appropriately to run it, and the continuous delivery pipeline runs. Now you can do either manual deployment or continuous deployment into production. And that code makes its way in a boring, automated, safe, reliable way into production, where it's then monitored, you are capturing feedback, and the feedback inspires you to go and then improve the product again. And GitLab does all of this. GitLab has this entire process in a single application. In fact, our aim and our vision is that GitLab would be able to replace multiple vendors across the lifecycle. Today, we do an amazing job in several of these categories where you can one-for-one replace GitLab, and GitLab's going to do an even better job. It'll be best in class than perhaps what you were using today. And in some parts of GitLab that are a bit newer and we're growing them very, very quickly. And our aim is that we would be your single application for the complete DevOps lifecycle. Of course, GitLab is very uniquely transparent. One attribute of our company is that we share almost everything publicly. Our roadmap is public. Our issue tracker is public, not only for our open source code, but also for our paid code. We have, it's an open issue tracker. And we put out all kinds of information that is available to you in a very transparent way. So this is a screenshot from our website that shows our product maturity. You can see some parts of it are very mature and robust and loved by our customers, and other parts are new and growing. But we're transparent so you can follow along the way. In this way, our aim is to be the best in class in all 10 of those categories. You might say, well, how can you do that? Well, one is the power of convention with over 100,000 organizations across the world using GitLab. We're implementing those best practices back into the product so that everybody takes advantage of them. The idea that everyone can contribute. We have a passionate, vocal, global community of over 2,200 people that are contributing to GitLab. These are just contributing the code. There's a much, much broader community that's even contributing issues and ideas and conversation. So we are very passionate about the idea of customer co-creation. We're not just building a product, we build it together with our customers. In fact, there are large enterprises that hire engineers to work for them that their job is to build features for GitLab that they need. And then they contribute those features back upstream, and all the other enterprises get to take advantage of it. This is the model that we've worked in. And because of this, we have continuous innovation and this open ecosystem that's allowed us to ship software at an alarming or very exciting accelerated rate. So you can see when GitLab was first started as an open source project in 2011, it basically was just a source code repository, maybe an issue tracker. And that might be what you're familiar with when you've heard of GitLab, that it's a code repo. But you can see over time, we very, very quickly scaled the amount of capabilities that GitLab has very, very fast. And we've done this through a very, very passionate and robust open source community, a very, very passionate and robust customer community, and by GitLab growing itself. We recently raised a 268 million Series E round and are growing our company and engineering force at a very, very quick pace. So all of this translates into faster delivery of features and capabilities as we move forward. Now, some folks might say, does that mean I need to rip everything out and then plug GitLab in? And the answer is no. Actually, most of our customers adopt GitLab gradually. So what they'll do is they'll start in one place. They might start with source code management, which gives them version control and code review. And then they would branch to CI and add in continuous integration. Then they'll do CD. And what we've seen is over time, as folks adopt more of GitLab, the return on their investment becomes greater and greater. In fact, there's a correlation between the amount of capabilities they're using in a single application and their DevOps maturity and the return on investment they get. So that grows over time as you adopt GitLab. Of course, don't take my word for it. We have customers across every industry vertical because we've seen digital transformation is happening in every industry. DevOps and agile software development practices are going across every industry. And GitLab applies in every industry, including yours, where we have customers. In fact, just a few of our stories are, for example, Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster had pipelines that were taking a long time to run, over 2 hours to do a build. They had problems like engineers were staying late on Friday night. Instead of getting home to their friends and family, they were having to stay late just to watch the pipeline complete because it was taking so long to make sure it was successful. When they implemented GitLab, that shrunk from 2 hours down to just 10 minutes. So things can run very, very quickly. And the reason they were able to do this is because GitLab's pipelines and our GitLab runner part of our, that runs our CI/CD is a modern architecture that allows it to scale very quickly and run things in parallel. So they were able to run their pipelines 15 times faster. Another business using GitLab is Worldline, who's a global financial services based in France, over 11,000 employees globally. And they were on some very, very legacy technologies, or what is legacy today, which is things like Subversion, version control, Jenkins. And these legacy technologies were making it very, very hard for them to do code review and code collaboration. They wanted their engineers to be able to review code so that code that makes its way out to production is of higher quality. And they wanted to be able to collaborate to get the best ideas out to production. The problem was, if you and I were working on code together at Worldline, and I wanted to go review your code, in order for me to get everything that I needed to get a branch and everything set up so that I could just go and review your code, actually was a process that took 2 weeks. So this was extremely painful. As you can imagine, very little code was actually reviewed. Well, when they implemented GitLab and they moved from Subversion to Git using GitLab, they actually were able to dramatically speed this up, so much so that if you and I were collaborating on code and I wanted to look at your changes, I could get them in a few seconds. So I could instantaneously see what your changes are. I could instantaneously go into GitLab and start reviewing on each part. And as you can imagine, the amount of code review that they did shot up by 120x. One other customer that I'll mention is Goldman Sachs, the investment firm. And they've adopted GitLab across several parts. They've replaced several tools with GitLab, including their source code management and their CI and their CD. And by reducing that tool chain, they've been able to accelerate their DevOps adoption. This increased their deployment frequency from once every 2 weeks to once every few minutes. They're now doing over 2,000 builds per day using GitLab. So this level of automation and DevOps maturity has come by using a modern tool designed for DevOps. But it's not just our customers talking about us. The industry analysts are also impressed with GitLab. IDC has called us an innovator. GitLab's called us a visionary. Forrester's is released us as a leader in their reports. And across multiple parts of our tool, from our CI to our enterprise agile planning. In fact, it's not just folks like Forrester and Gartner talking about us, but even our customer reviews. As you look at sites like Gartner Peer Insights, we were the customer choice winner for best enterprise agile planning tools and the best application release orchestration software as voted by our users on the Peer Insights. So as you can see, GitLab is a complete DevOps platform delivered as a single application. It's the leading source code management and CI in one place, so you don't need those in separate tools. It has built-in security and compliance with end-to-end insight and visibility. You can deploy your software anywhere you want, and you can deploy GitLab anywhere you want with flexible hosting options. This gives you rapid innovation, the ability for everybody to contribute, and a collaborative process, a business partner who is going to work with you not just today, but in the future. So that's to say, is what are the next steps? Shall we take some time to talk about how GitLab specifically can help your business? And that's the end of my presentation. Of course, at this point, if this was an introductory pitch or introductory session, the next step might be for the person to schedule a call with our sales team to talk more specifically about their product or talk more about their experiences, what's going on with them. Or this might be the first 15 or 20 minutes of a customer meeting that goes for an hour or 2 hours, where we talk a little bit about what GitLab is, but then we dig in after this, then we go and talk about what are they experiencing? What are your specific challenges? What are the negative things that are happening in your business and the consequences of those? And if you could wave the magic wand, what would things look like? And maybe we can figure out how GitLab can help you. So with all of that, thank you for watching the video. I would love your feedback as we are working through this messaging, iterating it. As I mentioned, I'll link the issue to go and check it out in the description of this video, and have a very wonderful day.